Wars, they change, and they're being waged around the globe right now. There's the old traditional war of mass troops crossing borders. We're seeing some of that today. There's a more modern use of missiles, jets, and naval vessels, and we're obviously seeing some of that as well. We rarely hear of the covert war where people are working in the shadows. There are structural saboteurs, virtual hackers, barons of big businesses, oligarchs, and individuals who have become more powerful than some whole nations. The clear us versus them of old conflicts have become a confused landscape of propagandists, patriots, confederates, conspirators, separatists, and sometimes unwitting shills. It's hard to define the enemy, and it's sometimes even harder to find the targets on a battlefield that circles the world and permeates every facet of our existence. Though the Russian-Ukrainian war may seem over there, and we may feel removed from it, a tectonic geopolitical landscape shift is happening right under our feet. The impact of this conflict will be felt for years, even decades into the future, in so many ways. In this video, we're going to shed light on the visible and invisible impact of this conflict we're witnessing in real time. There's much to uncover, from inflation to resources to the assault on your way of life. In a world of globalization that is imploding rapidly, your key to survival might be to get local. But first, let's examine how this can escalate from here. Download the Start Preparing Survival Guide to help you prepare for any disaster. I'll post a link in the description and comments section below, or visit cityprepping.com/get started for a free guide to help you get started on your journey of preparedness. What's next? The world moves slowly in response to such incursions, and Putin counts on this slow reaction pace. Let's be clear from the beginning. There is only one side of this battle to stand on, and that is the side of Ukraine. They have the right to govern themselves, determine what world organizations they wish to join, have their borders honored, and their elected officials respected. NATO can't do a whole lot but condemn from afar for its part. Ukraine isn't a member state. The Baltic states of Latvia, Lithuania, and Estonia are members of NATO. So, though it angers Putin further, NATO allies, including the US, are sending copious military assets into these countries, including the highly advanced supersonic long-range F-35. Finland, which shares an 830-mile border with Russia, and its neighbor Sweden, who have remained out of NATO and feared further Russian problems, could be driven right into joining. On February 25th, the Russian Foreign Ministry spokesman, Maria Zakharova, made the ominous threat that if those countries joined NATO, it would result in serious military political repercussions. This is akin to the burglar saying that he has no choice but to rob your house because you sought to install a security system. The UN isn't much better at mitigating the current situation with any significant speed. They called for a vote condemning Russia's flagrant violation of Ukraine's sovereignty and demanding an immediate withdrawal. The only problem is that the Russian Federation has veto power, so they did veto the resolution. Notable abstentions were China, likely staying neutral and concerned about its trade deals, India, also worried about its trade deals with the Russian Federation, and the United Arab Emirates, who have oil as their common interest with the Russian Federation. Next, the measure will go to the whole UN, where only a simple majority is required. But will it happen before Kiev falls? The Society for Worldwide Interbank Financial Telecommunication, SWIFT, system sanctions were not implemented at the time of recording this video, but other sanctions were. Some of the NATO allies were against SWIFT sanctions because they still need Russian fuel and oil, but overnight that has changed quite a bit, and it looks like SWIFT sanctions will be implemented, which, by the time this video is released, will probably have already happened. Essentially, every transaction between every bank or financial institution relies upon it. However, what happens if the conflict continues or grows and Russia is removed from the SWIFT system? This is a massive win for the United States, as it would cause the ruble to plummet in value. It would leave countries that depend on Russian imports literally out in the cold without heating oil. It would also force Russia and China to strike currency deals among themselves. Though it may seem far-fetched, like Russia invading Ukraine seemed just a few months ago, the world could wake up one day to two distinctly different currency systems, to half of the world only dealing with its partner nations, a globe divided into two very distinct and autonomous camps, into two economies. Another recent sanction was against Putin and his inner circle. Increasingly, the Russian Federation is being marginalized from the world stage. Russian citizens who protest war with Ukraine are being arrested, so it's not likely that the country will see the light as a result of its people. Putin's possible mistake, however, has been to underestimate the resolve of the Ukrainian people to govern themselves and fight for their country. Though faced with overwhelming military forces, they are fighting the Russian military at every corner and street by street. Most assuredly, armaments have been flowing in from the NATO country of Poland and elsewhere. The longer they can hold out, the harder it gets for Putin to keep his forces there. The longer they hold out, the more the Russian Federation will be marginalized. Warmer months will come. The need for Russian natural gas and fuel oil will be lessened, and even harder sanction embargoes can be imposed. If Russia takes over Ukraine and establishes a puppet government, the playbook for China to follow in the South China Sea will be inked. The potential conflict in the Baltic states could flare up. Finland and Sweden could join NATO, and the battle could heat up there along with the warmer months. Make no mistake about it, there are many ways this can go horribly sideways, and though it may seem like Russia is winning, the longer it takes, the more the tables are turning. If Ukraine descends into an all-out guerrilla war and the conflict stretches for weeks, yanking Russia from the world banking financial system, SWIFT, could be the next step. This could find them partnering up with China, which has already been trying to establish its own fiat crypto-based currency. Much can happen, and much of what does depend on how long Ukraine can stand. So, what are we seeing now, and what can we expect to see? Inflation. The most immediate and most apparent result of the Russian-Ukrainian conflict is the rising price of everything. Even as a threat of war looms, massive allocations of funds are redistributed to mitigate any losses. Investors seek safe havens for their money. Businesses preemptively raise prices on everything they make or distribute that could be impacted by shortages and increased demand. You notice this most immediately at the gas pump, then your energy bills, and then at your grocery bill. Sometimes you may not realize that you're paying an extra quarter or dollar for a product, but often all of those quarters go unnoticed until you see the final bill at checkout. You will see two notable price increases from the current conflict: fuels and grains. Ukraine and Russia are key exporters of wheat, with both accounting for a combined 23% of global wheat trade last year. Ukraine is the world's largest producer of sunflower oil, followed by Russia. The two countries accounted for 60% of the global production last year. Ukraine is one of the world's largest corn exporters, representing 16% of the previous year's total global corn exports. The buyers for these grains and seed oils from Ukraine are primarily the EU and China. When the flow of one of these is challenged, it puts a strain on all grains and oils, driving all prices upwards. As we covered in a previous video, China has been buying up and stockpiling large amounts of the world's grains, perhaps in preparation for their own land grabs and conflicts that they know will not be well received on the world stage. Furthermore, the world's grain distribution and storage are primarily in India, China, and Russia. In most cases, processing companies and trading houses in China, Russia, and India are state organizations running the storage facilities for the rest of the world. In the EU, hardly any farmers store grain or oil seeds. The world's grain reserves are primarily in the hands of just 3 countries, 2 of which are hostile to the West. This will drive up food prices worldwide, as price tags add zeros for everything from breakfast cereal to livestock feed to plastics and cooking oils. While China has remained mainly on the sidelines of this conflict, at the Olympics, a trade deal was struck between Russia and China. That is China's most significant purchase of grain from Russia to date. Undoubtedly, Putin sought to mitigate the embargoes he knew he would face from his hostile actions, and China was more than willing to get the deal on the grain. The other significant global inflation will be on fuels, from natural gas, which we use to make fertilizer and heat homes, to crude oil and gas that fuels our cars. The EU will suffer as it breaks ties with Russia. Demand for fuel will rise. Europe will seek replacement fuels from Norway and the United States and NATO partner countries in the Middle East. Demand and consumption in almost every country in the world is lopsided. Countries run a deficit by consuming more than they produce. The U.S. only produces 90% of its consumptive needs. China, 79%. India, 58%. Japan, 11%. Germany, 34%. South Korea, 13%. And Brazil, 89%. In fact, only 3 of the top 10 fossil fuel producing countries produce more than they burn: Russia, Canada, and Iran. The prices for all non-renewable fossil fuels, coal, oil, and natural gas, and every product made from them and distributed by burning them will go up in price. China exports about 3.7 million tons of thermal coal, the primary fuel for electricity production, from Russia in September of 2021. That's up more than 230% over the year before. As fuel and grain prices soar and shortages become commonplace, trade agreements will be forged anew between North America and Europe and between China, Iran, and Russia. The price increases and scarcity will contribute to a new forming of axis and allies. Scarcity. The longer the Russian-Ukrainian war lasts, the more likely significant global shortages will manifest. Countries who rely upon foreign aid or the importing of what they need will suffer from prolonged shortages. Countries with a surplus will be reluctant to export their products and goods, fearing further escalation of the global crisis. It's not just fossil fuels and grains that are impacted by these scarcities. A byproduct of natural gas production makes fertilizer. The lack of fertilizers will result in lower global harvest of everything. In the prepping community, we harp on the 8 pillars of readiness. 2 of those big pillars are food and energy. Both of these will experience shortages. Most people don't understand where their food comes from, but it has become a delicate and highly intricate global distribution system. The beef product you use today might have been fed with grains that are grown thousands of miles away and processed in yet another country. It may have been cooked in oils from another part of the world, along with vegetables grown on the opposite side of the globe. It isn't just a matter of compensating for a shortage of one ingredient by willingly switching what you eat. It's often an unpredictable ripple of effects from a scarcity of any one component in the chain. Sometimes there can be an abundance, high yields, and bumper crops, but the shortage is because of a lack of packing or workers. Just this year, the meat industry was challenged by a lack of skilled carvers and packing components. After all, most people are unwilling to process large chunks of meat they are handed in a paper bag. The globalized system is very delicate. As a conflict continues or escalates, the possibility of one piece of that system failing or stumbling increases. As borders get closed and sanctions are implemented, there will be a scarcity of hundreds of things that make hundreds of other things, and you will realize this the moment you walk into any store. Sabotage and cyberware. We will likely see clandestine Russian-sponsored small action sabotage attacks on U.S. and allied soil if things continue to escalate. Before the invasion of Ukraine, there were acts of cyber warfare, and Ukrainian intelligence indicates that there are active enemy sabotage groups working in the country. A covert, coordinated attack in a city near you is a possibility. If you're in Ukraine, it is inevitable. If you live in the Black Sea or Baltic states, it's highly probable. If you live in a European or North Atlantic country, some unknown perpetrators could physically attack your infrastructure. The Russia-based cybercrime group Conti, known for using ransomware to extort millions of dollars from U.S. and European companies, announced their full support of Putin's government and vowed to attack enemies of the Kremlin if they respond to Russia's invasion of Ukraine. Hackers in the group Anonymous hacked into the Russian Ministry of Defense website. They released a database that contains the phone numbers, emails, and passwords of hundreds, possibly thousands of officials. The cyber war is quite active right now, and it's just a matter of time before systems you rely on somewhere in your life, be it banking or utilities, are penetrated, crippled, exploited, or deleted. If the global conflict increases as some countries flee to the safety of joining NATO and others open new alliances with Russia, acts of sabotage and cyber attacks on infrastructure targets could become the norm. We just don't know the extent of the Putin playbook nor the lengths he is willing to go. We know that direct incursion like Russia could result in a nuclear conflict. Putin has said as much. We do know that we have seen significant system shutdowns before. There are more than a few exposed but vital grid components: railways, processing plants, manufacturing plants, shipping intermodal terminals, electrical, water, and natural gas systems. It is very possible that the JBS and Colonial ransomware attacks last year were merely Russia flexing. Just as we conduct nuclear and missile tests to demonstrate to adversaries our militaristic might, these attacks might just have been minor demonstrations. An all-out and orchestrated attack on the US and European systems could result in a grid-down situation lasting weeks or months. It could destabilize countries completely. It would assuredly eliminate any opposition to territorial expansions of either China or Russia. What can you do? I've received more than a few emails asking this question due to what we are seeing in the world stage right now. There are still things you can do right now to lessen the impact of this conflict on you. The truth is that you will never be as prepped as you want to be when the disaster strikes. I've said this before in so many ways. The best thing you can do is to work a prepping plan to ensure you have 3 days, then 3 weeks, and then 3 months or more of preps. If it all blows over and never arrives close to your home, you may still save your money by doing for yourself and becoming more self-sufficient. You will be better equipped to face whatever future disaster is next in line for you. Start with a plan. Build your shelf-stable emergency food supply and water supplies. Learn what you need to know to do this from the videos on this channel. When you have accomplished these things, even as the prices continue to go up and up, Work on the other 6 pillars of prepping, like energy and medicine. Work to actively reduce your dependence on global resources and get local with your needs. The worst thing you could do is to hear the warnings and alarms of a war that cannot be contained by borders and still do nothing to prepare. Normalcy bias is a cognitive bias that leads people to disbelieve or minimize threat warnings. If the last 2 years hasn't been a wake-up call to get prepared, I'm not really sure what will. Stay calm and turn off any news sources that is more concerned with debating what should have been done by whom than they are with reporting what is actually happening on the ground. Focus on what you need to prep. Spend time with your family and strengthen your community networks and resources. Develop your plan with your people for when the lights go out and the water stops flowing through your tap. Take control of those aspects of your life you can take control of now. The Russian-Ukrainian war could resolve itself and only result in some geopolitical restructuring. Or it could continue to escalate and open new fronts around the globe. Nothing we can individually do will change how that pans out, but we will feel the pain of it. Make your part from that to get prepped.
You're already seeing massive price hikes. Next will come shortages. Fossil fuels and food prices will spike sharply upward, even as the supply reserves are depleted. There will be further massive corrections in the financial markets around the world. The commodity market futures will continue to skyrocket as the security of resources is called further into question. Expect cyber warfare and possibly even saboteurs physically attacking infrastructure and financial systems. Waking up to chaos or empty bank or crypto accounts are all possibilities. All of these things, they're possible. Though the Russian-Ukrainian war may seem still far away and only viewable on our screens, it is highly likely to escalate like no conflict we've ever seen before. It can spread faster than World War I or World War II. If there ever was a time to set a goal for 3 months of self-sufficiency and prepping, it is now. Every day of the Russian-Ukrainian war will make it that much harder to get prepared. This is not a threat we can sit on the sidelines and ignore. It's here today. What do you think? What are you doing to prepare for the fallout from this war, which may be thousands of miles away from you? Are we heading unstoppably into another global war? Is further diplomacy even possible at this point? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. I try to read the comments and respond to them when I can, and that's typically within the first hour of releasing a video. Please consider subscribing to this channel if you'd like to be notified when I release a video, and give this video a thumbs up to help the channel grow. As always, please stay safe out there.